Good afternoon and welcome to the 2014 NCAA First Round Press Conference. Joining us on the dais is head coach Dave McGarity and student athletes from Army. We'll begin with an opening statement from Coach McGarity. Coach?
Well, first of all, I'm thrilled to be here. It's pretty exciting to be hosted by your former boss here at the University of Maryland. Kevin Anderson and I have a long history, and it was a thrill, number one, to get to this point. It was a great journey these last couple of years with this group, overcoming a tremendous disappointment last year after surprising everybody and winning a regular season championship and being the 1 seed and then having a devastating loss in the first round. This team showed an incredible amount of resolve, I thought, and in all my years doing this, and I've been doing this quite a while, this team probably improved and learned from their mistakes more than any team I've ever coached. So I'm proud. I'm proud of what they did. And I think it's been a special year for us, and for us to be able to win the championship and secure an NCAA bid on our home floor was really special in light of what happened 8 years ago in '06. So it's been a great run for us and a great ride.
Okay, we'll now open it up for questions for Coach McGarity and Army student athletes. We'd ask that you please wait until you have the microphone and also please identify yourself and affiliation prior to asking the question.
Ken McMillan, Times-Herald Record. Jen, now that you're on the eve of, making your NCAA debut, just, tell me your feelings.
I mean, I think everyone on the team is just excited to be at this point. It's, especially for me, it's taken 4 years and everyone else a little bit less time than that. But, we're here now and we're just going to enjoy this moment and cherish it because, you don't know when the next time this will happen. So hopefully with this team, the streak will continue to go, to go on. And I think that it will. And I'm just glad to have been a part of it my last year. So.
Gene Wong, Washington Post. Coach, first for you and then for any of the players. Obviously, Maryland goes as Alyssa Thomas goes. What makes her such a special player, and how do you kind of approach trying to defend her?
Well, I think that's sort of I don't know if it's an understatement, but she is a special player. I mean, 3-time ACC Player of the Year. Just watching film has been an adventure for us, for me and my staff, and she really is, going to be a tough cover for us. I mean, there's no way around it. She's about as versatile a player as I've ever seen. And, we in my first trip on the women's side back in '06, we faced a pretty good player in Candace Parker from Tennessee who coincidentally got her first college dunk against us in a tournament, which I have a hard time getting that out of my mind. But it was an adventure. But this young lady is different. I mean, she's just different in the way she plays and the way that she controls the tempo of a game and creates tough matchups is really going to be a challenge for us.
Like Coach said, she kind of does it all for them. She brings the ball up, she shoots, she rebounds, she passes. So it'll be a tough matchup for us, and you probably can't really stop her. You just try and contain her, but we're just going to try and throw stuff at her and hopefully get her out of her game a little bit, but it's a tough matchup for us.
Dave Ginsburg, Associated Press. Liz is going to the WNBA after she's done. You're a senior. What does your future hold, which obviously means a military obligation? What do you do, pilot, whatever, and could you tell me where you're headed from here?
Yeah, right after this, I'll stay and be a grad assistant for the team, kind of like an athletic intern for the team until next January. And then I go to my basic officer leadership course down at Fort Lee, Virginia for the quartermaster branch, which is what I branched. And then right after that, I got stationed at Fort Stewart, Georgia, which is near Savannah. So that's where I'll be spending my time as a platoon leader. So.
Marissa Jacks, Time Warner Cable News. This is for the players. You know what Alyssa Thomas can do, and you know what Marilyn can do, but you ladies don't seem intimidated. You're not intimidated, are you?
I would say we're not intimidated, just based on who we are as a team and who we are as cadets and people. We've gotten here by this point not individually, so we're not going in looking at an individual. We work together, and that's how we've been successful, is working together. So together we're not intimidated. Together we fight, and that's our main game plan.
Question up front.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned your relationship with Kevin over here. Can you just speak to that a little bit and what that time was like initially after Maggie passed and you take over the program? Just your thoughts to that time.
Well, yeah, it's a very emotional thing for me, but it was a tough time. It was probably one of the toughest things I've ever lived through, and having that gift of spending, it was like six months, if that, less than that. How I got there is sort of an interesting story, but more than anything, it was a decision that I made to stay because I just felt she gave me something back that I thought I had lost. I had coached for 32 years. I had gotten in the administration end of it. Wasn't really cut out for that, I think, to be honest. I had a great job, and I was an assistant commissioner in the Mid-American Conference. But, I knew a lot of people at West Point, and I had coached against the men's team for years as a head coach at Marist College. And it just was, it was a good fit at the time, and everybody that I had known during my years competing against them just made me feel like I was needed. But more than anything was Maggie and her brother Jamie, So I certainly have no regrets, and I'm glad I stayed. He didn't have to twist my arm to stay, but he allowed me to do something really special, and that was to hire my daughter as my assistant, and she's now the head coach at the University of New Hampshire, and I look back on the sequence of events, and 8 years after, I have nothing but incredible, great memories of Maggie, and she's such a fabric of our history, and these young ladies have bought into that, and that was a big deal, in our run. I didn't want to overdo it because I thought it was their time, and we tried to just make it, explain to them how impactful that was and what it meant to our program, taking us to the first NCAA tournament, with Division I history, and it's all good. So I'm just so proud of what they did, and they were able to handle that pressure a little bit, and then we I just had their own identity, and they sort of made their own history. So it's a big deal, in a one-bid league, especially our league now, because our league just went from 8 to 10 teams. We jumped to the number 11 conference in the country. I mean, we're the second highest rated mid-major conference in the country, and our RPI is the highest it's ever been, I believe, in the mid-50s. And quite frankly, I'm disappointed we're not a higher seed, But more than that, I was like, well, why are they a 4 seed? I'm stunned because we're talking about one of the top 5 teams in the country, in my opinion. So, same thing happened to us in 06. All we heard about was how upset Pat Summitt was that they weren't a 1 seed, they were a 2 seed. So we had to deal with that at that point. So, but that, we're here. I'm happy we're here.
Coach Rich DeMarco, Army Sports Network. How much different are you think, as a coach from your time at Marist to even 8 years ago when you first came to West Point?
Well, I'm probably a little bit more, they may not agree with it, but, I'm probably a little bit more calm than I was. The main reason I thought it was critical that Mr. Anderson allowed me to hire my daughter was that someone had to keep me in check because, the joke was at the time, the year I spent with Maggie Dixon, I was the big teddy bear. Everybody, the assistant coach was so great being an assistant again. I could go home after practice, not worry about all the headaches. And I told them before I took the job, I decided to stay, was that, hey, I'm not going to be the same person. And there's some people in this room that have covered me as a men's coach. You know, Ken McMillan from Times Herald Record. I mean, it was tough. So those first couple of years were rough. And if you spoke to some of those players, they would probably confirm that. The young lady all the way down to my left can probably speak to that more than anybody. I don't think I've ever been tougher on a player than I have on Jen Haslett. And the reason is that she is one of the most talented young athletes I've ever coached, male or female. And I've had some pretty good players. And she just stepped up big time this year, had a wonderful senior year, and helped lead us to this point.
Kelsey, you've scored a lot of points in a lot of games, but probably the key to beating Maryland would be defense. Do you guys want to keep the game low scoring? A couple of years ago, they played Navy, scored only 59 against them. Is that without giving away the obvious game plan, but is defense going to be the key here?
Definitely. I mean, defense is kind of what propels us to win games and to be productive on offense. It really all starts on the defensive end. And I think defense and our defensive toughness has been a big part of our success this year. But I mean, Maryland's obviously a really good team, and they're one of the best rebounding teams in the nation, if not the best. So that's definitely a big part of our game plan, just controlling the boards, or at least trying to box them out every possession, and trying to keep them off the boards. Because when they get defense rebounds, they go right into their transition break, and that's tough to cover also. So really, defense is really the overarching game plan for us.
Question in the back.
Jen, I'd like to hear your perspective of what Coach just talked about, because he said he's mellowed over the years, but he's been tougher on you than anybody. How have you seen him change over your 4 years?
He's actually changed quite a bit. My freshman year, it was a little rough, a big transition for me, you know, coming from high school. I had all male coaches anyways in high school, so it wasn't that bad. But, you know, Coach, it's a different ball game in college, and a lot more pressure is on, and so I understand, you know, why coaches get the way they do. But, you know, he only does it because he cares, and he wants us to play to the potential that he sees that we have. And, you know, I've learned to trust him and what he has to say about my play, you know, my game, and I've really learned a lot from him. And you know, like I have changed completely since my freshman year to where I am now, and it's all because of him, and you know, just the trust that I have in him and belief that I had in him and the coaches. And he's definitely mellowed out, but you know, he has those moments. But you know, it's only because he cares. So.
How have you changed?
How have I changed? I was way too hard on myself, and I still am, but I was just so critical of everything that I did wrong, and that obviously didn't help anybody, didn't help my teammates. So I learned a lot from those mistakes, and you know, just mostly this year I've been putting the focus on my teammates instead of myself, and that's really helped my game as well. So.
I just had a follow-up question to that. Do you think that the pressure that he's put on you and all that he's done will help you be a better leader, because you're forced now to be in a leadership position for the rest of your life?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think basketball has shaped my leadership style more than anything, you know, more than West Point has ever developed me into. And I think that basketball will always be the one thing that has, you know, shaped me more than anything. And you know, credit goes to the coaches as well, because they put that pressure on me, and you know, being the lone senior on this championship team, you know, that's also a lot of pressure. But I've had great teammates, and they made it a lot easier than it should have been. So.
Jen, could you speak a little bit to what it means to represent not just Army but the Patriot League in the NCAA tournament, especially given that Navy had been the last champion the last 3 years? Maybe a little more satisfaction on your end.
Right. I mean, a lot of satisfaction. We deserve this, and you know, I almost went to Navy, so that would have been a whole different ball game. But I'm so grateful, you know, my senior year to end up on top and to go out the way that, you know, I'm going out is just something that everyone dreams of, and I'm so grateful for that. And, you know, we're going to represent the Patriot League well because we are one of the toughest teams that I've ever been a part of, and everyone's just ready to play, and we're going to compete. And you know, like, we have some tough girls on this team. You know, we're going to the Army, so we're pretty tough girls, and we play like that on the court too. So.
Any additional questions? Back.
Olivia, can you talk about how this team came together this year, and you know what pieces came together to help make this a championship team?
Definitely. I think what brought us together at the end, we talked about defense, we talked about scoring. I think it's our toughness. I think we had a rough patch early on or later in the season. We had 2 losses to our only loss at home was Holy Cross. And then we lost a tough one to Colgate. And, you know, as captains, as leadership, we looked, what are we fighting for? And our team really revolves around our veterans. And we went to Walter Reed yesterday, and that really encompasses who we are. We focus on what we're going to be and who we are going to be in the Army. And I think that's what makes us stronger, and that's what made us the best team in the Patriot League, was our toughness. So I think tomorrow you're going to see a lot of that toughness come through. We're not going to underestimate the enemy, but at the same time, we're going to come out and compete like we have the last 27 games.
Can you elaborate a little bit on yesterday's visit?
Yeah, yesterday's visit was. I'm an Army brat. I've seen a lot of my friends. You know, my friend's dad has lost both his legs. I've been around it, but to go and see these men and women fighting to recover and go back into the real world, and what they want to do is serve back and become active duty, was very, very humbling. At the same time, it was very motivating because that's who we're going to lead. I know that a former Army West Point women's basketball player was a commander of one of the men's who's a double amputee. So we're going to have that experience in the future, and to see that was a really good experience.
Kelsey, can you also relate, early in your Army career here?
Definitely. I mean, for me, I've never been around the things Olivia was talking about, but just to go there and see the people in rehab and the people that are really fighting to get back and do what they love doing was just really humbling, and it really put things back in perspective and showed us why we're playing basketball at West Point, who we're playing for, and that kind of thing. So it was really special for me and for everyone on the team just to see that, and I know it's definitely a visit that we'll all remember for a long time.
Any additional questions? Thank you very much for joining us.